You know that person, the one who always has something negative to say. The weather is too hot, too cold, never just right. The coffee is too bitter. The job is terrible. The world is unfair. Their partner doesn't understand them. Their friends are fake. The government is corrupt. Traffic is unbearable. Life is hard. Everything is wrong. And nothing, absolutely nothing, is ever enough. You have met this person. Maybe you work with them. Maybe you live with them. Maybe you love them. Or maybe, and this is the part that hurts the most, maybe you are this person, and you don't even know it yet. Today we are going to dive deep into the psychology of chronic complaining. Not the surface-level observation that complainers are annoying or negative. No, we are going deeper. We are going into the architecture of the complaining mind, the hidden needs, the unconscious patterns, the emotional survival mechanisms that turn a human being into a walking generator of dissatisfaction. And most importantly, we are going to understand why this matters for you, for your energy, for your peace, and for your future. Because here is the truth that no one tells you. Chronic complaining is not just a bad habit. It is a symptom. It is a signal. It is a red flag waving frantically in the wind, trying to tell you something essential about the inner world of the person in front of you. And if you ignore that signal, you will pay the price. You will pay it with your energy, with your time, with your mental health, with your emotional sovereignty. So let's begin. Let's dismantle this pattern together. Let's understand what is really happening when someone complains about everything. And let's learn how to protect ourselves without losing our humanity in the process. Before we go further, if this resonates with you, if you are tired of being drained by people who see problems everywhere and solutions nowhere, hit that subscribe button. This channel is dedicated to the truth, to the things that matter, to the psychology that sets you free, and we are just getting started. Now let's talk about the complainer. The first thing you need to understand is this. Chronic complaining is not about the external world. It never is. When someone complains about everything, they are not actually complaining about the traffic, the weather, the government, or their boss. They are complaining about something much deeper, something they cannot name, something they cannot face, and so they project it outward. They spray it across their environment like a fog machine, covering everything in a thick layer of dissatisfaction. This is called externalization, and it is one of the most common psychological defense mechanisms in existence. The human mind is brilliant at avoiding pain, and one of the easiest ways to avoid internal pain is to blame external circumstances. If the problem is out there, then I don't have to look in here. If the world is broken, then I don't have to admit that I am the one who feels broken. If everything is wrong, then I don't have to take responsibility for making anything right. This is the first layer. The chronic complainer is running from themselves. They are running from a feeling they cannot tolerate. And that feeling is almost always one of three things: powerlessness, shame, or emptiness. Let's start with powerlessness. Human beings need to feel some degree of control over their lives. We need to believe that our actions matter, that our choices have consequences, that we can influence our reality. This is not arrogance. This is survival. Without a sense of agency, we collapse into learned helplessness. We become passive, depressed, hopeless. But here is the problem. Life is unpredictable, chaotic, unfair. And sometimes, no matter how hard we try, we cannot control the outcome. We lose the job. The relationship ends. The illness comes. The opportunity slips away. And in those moments, we are forced to confront our own helplessness. We are forced to feel small, fragile, vulnerable. For some people, this is unbearable. Their entire identity is built on the illusion of control. And when that illusion shatters, they panic, they scramble to rebuild it. And one of the fastest ways to rebuild the illusion of control is to complain, because complaining gives you the feeling that you are doing something, that you are naming the problem, that you are standing up to the injustice, that you are not just passively accepting your fate. But here is the twist. Complaining without action is not power. It is the performance of power. It is the theater of agency. It is the mind's way of convincing itself that it still matters, even when it refuses to do anything that would actually matter. This is why chronic complainers rarely take action. They talk about the problem endlessly. They analyze it. They dissect it. They compare it to other problems. They explain why it is so unfair. But they do not solve it. They do not adapt. They do not move. Because if they actually solved the problem, they would lose their source of pseudo-power. They would lose the one thing that makes them feel like they are still in control, the ability to critique reality. So they stay stuck, complaining about the same things, over and over, year after year. And the more they complain, the more powerless they actually become. Because complaining drains energy. It rewires the brain to focus on problems instead of solutions. It trains the nervous system to live in a state of chronic dissatisfaction. And eventually the complainer becomes so identified with their complaints that they cannot imagine who they would be without them. This is the trap. The more you complain, the more you need to complain. It becomes a loop, a habit, an identity. And breaking free requires something the chronic complainer is terrified of: silence, stillness, the willingness to sit with the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, the problem is not out there. Maybe it is in here. Maybe it is the way I see the world. Maybe it is the story I keep telling myself. Maybe it is the fact that I have trained my mind to find fault in everything because finding fault is easier than finding peace. Now let's talk about shame. This is the second root of chronic complaining, and it is darker than powerlessness. Because shame is not just about feeling small, it is about feeling wrong, defective, fundamentally flawed, unworthy of love, belonging, or respect. Shame is the feeling that says, there is something wrong with me. Not something I did, something I am. And this feeling is so painful, so intolerable, that the mind will do almost anything to avoid it, including projecting it outward. When someone complains constantly about other people, they are often trying to deflect their own shame. If I can find fault in you, then maybe I am not the faulty one. If I can criticize your choices, then maybe my choices are not so bad. If I can point out everything that is wrong with the world, then maybe no one will notice everything that is wrong with me. This is why chronic complainers are often hypercritical. They have impossibly high standards for everyone and everything except themselves. They notice every flaw, every mistake, every imperfection, and they point it out. Not because they care about improvement, but because they need to feel superior. Because superiority is the antidote to shame. If I am better than you, then I am not worthless. If I can see what you cannot see, then I am not stupid. If I can judge you, then I am not the one being judged. But here is the tragedy. The more you criticize others, the more you reinforce your own inner critic, the voice that tells you that you are not enough, that you are failing, that you are falling behind, that you should be more, do more, achieve more. And so the complainer is stuck in a vicious cycle. They criticize the world to avoid their own shame, but the act of criticizing only deepens the shame. Because deep down they know the truth. They know that their constant negativity is pushing people away. They know that they are becoming the person no one wants to be around. And that knowledge only confirms their deepest fear, that they are in fact unworthy. This is why chronic complainers are often lonely. Not because they are bad people, but because their defense mechanism against shame is precisely the thing that isolates them. They push away the very connection that could heal them, and they do it unconsciously, automatically, without even realizing what they are doing. And then there is the third root, emptiness. This is the most subtle, the most existential, and perhaps the most painful. Because emptiness is not about feeling bad. It is about feeling nothing. It is the absence of meaning, the absence of purpose, the absence of direction. It is the hollow feeling that says, I do not know why I am here. I do not know what I am supposed to do. I do not know what matters. And I am terrified that the answer is nothing. Emptiness is what happens when you lose touch with your inner world, when you stop listening to your own needs, desires, and values, when you live according to scripts written by other people, when you chase goals that do not actually resonate with your soul, when you perform a version of yourself that is acceptable, safe, convenient, but not true. And when you live like this for long enough, something inside you starts to die. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like a fire burning out. And eventually you wake up one day and realize that you do not feel anything. You do not feel joy. You do not feel passion. You do not feel alive. You just feel empty. And emptiness is terrifying, because it forces you to confront the possibility that your life is meaningless, that all the effort, all the striving, all the compromise was for nothing, that you have been sleepwalking through your own existence, and that realization is so unbearable that the mind will do anything to avoid it, including filling the emptiness with complaints. Because complaining is stimulating, it gives you something to focus on, something to feel. It creates the illusion of engagement, the illusion that you care, that you are still alive, that something still matters to you, even if that something is just how much you hate your job, your neighbor, or the state of the world. This is why chronic complainers often seem energized by their complaints. They light up when they talk about what is wrong. They become animated, passionate, engaged, not because they enjoy suffering, but because complaining is the only thing that makes them feel anything at all. It is a spark in the darkness, a pulse in the void, a reminder that they still exist. But here is the cruel irony. Complaining does not fill the emptiness, it deepens it. Because the more you focus on what is wrong, the less you connect with what is right. The less you notice beauty, gratitude, possibility, the less you cultivate meaning. And so the emptiness grows, and the need to complain grows with it, and the cycle continues. Now here's what you need to understand. If you are dealing with a chronic complainer, you are not just dealing with an annoying habit. You are dealing with a person in pain, a person who is running from powerlessness, shame, or emptiness. And that pain is real. It is valid. It deserves compassion. But compassion does not mean tolerating behavior that drains you. Compassion does not mean sacrificing your own peace to accommodate someone else's unprocessed pain. Compassion does not mean staying silent while someone else's negativity infects your mental space. This is the balance you must find. Understanding without enabling, empathy without absorption, boundaries without cruelty. And this is not easy, because chronic complainers have a way of making you feel guilty for protecting yourself. They make you feel selfish for not wanting to listen. They make you feel cold for not caring enough. They weaponize their suffering. They use it as a leash. And if you are not careful, you will spend your entire life being pulled by that leash, going nowhere, exhausted, resentful, and empty yourself. So how do you protect yourself? How do you maintain your energy without losing your humanity? Let's talk about that. The first step is recognition. You need to be able to identify chronic complaining when you see it. And the key difference between healthy venting and chronic complaining is this. Healthy venting is temporary and leads to action. Chronic complaining is repetitive and leads to nothing. When someone is healthy venting, they express their frustration, they process their emotions, and then they either take action to change the situation or they accept it and move on. The conversation has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There is resolution, there is movement. But when someone is chronically complaining, the conversation never ends. It just loops. They complain about the same thing today that they complained about last week, last month, last year. And when you offer solutions, they reject them. When you offer support, they dismiss it. When you offer perspective, they argue, because they are not looking for a solution. They are looking for an audience. They are looking for validation. They are looking for someone to confirm that yes, the world is terrible. Yes, life is unfair. Yes, you are a victim. Yes, there is nothing you can do. And if you play that role, you become complicit in their stagnation. You become the enabler. The emotional trash can. The person who absorbs all their negativity, so they never have to process it themselves. And this will destroy you. Not immediately, but slowly, over time. You will notice that after spending time with this person, you feel drained, heavy, irritable, hopeless. You will notice that their negativity starts to seep into your own thoughts, that you start seeing the world through their lens, that you start complaining more, that your own energy starts to dim. This is called emotional contagion, and it is real. Emotions are contagious, especially negative emotions. And if you are constantly exposed to someone who lives in a state of chronic dissatisfaction, you will start to absorb that dissatisfaction. You will start to resonate with it. And eventually, you will become it. So the second step is boundaries. You need to create space between yourself and the complainer. Not necessarily physical space, although sometimes that is necessary, but energetic space, psychological space. The space that says, I see your pain, but I am not responsible for fixing it. I hear your complaints, but I will not let them define my reality. I care about you, but I will not sacrifice my peace for your comfort. This is not cruelty, this is self-preservation, and it is necessary. Because you cannot help someone who does not want to help themselves. You cannot save someone who is committed to drowning. And you cannot light someone else's path if you let them extinguish your own flame. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like limiting your exposure. It looks like changing the subject when the complaining starts. It looks like refusing to engage with the negativity loop. It looks like saying things like, I hear you and I also believe you have the power to change this. Or I understand this is hard and I trust you will find a way through. Or simply, I am not available for this conversation right now. It looks like not offering solutions unless they are asked for. Because offering unsolicited advice to a chronic complainer is a trap. They will reject your advice and then they will resent you for offering it. They will make you feel like you don't understand, like you are being dismissive, like you are part of the problem. And you will walk away feeling confused, frustrated, and guilty. Do not fall into this trap. Let them complain. Let them sit with their own dissatisfaction. Let them feel the weight of their own negativity. Because sometimes, the only way someone learns to stop complaining is when they finally hear themselves. When there is no one left to validate them. When they are forced to confront the fact that their complaining is not changing anything. That it is not making them feel better. That it is not giving them what they actually need. And what do they actually need? They need to reclaim their power. They need to face their shame. They need to fill their emptiness with something real. They need to stop running and start feeling. They need to stop projecting and start owning. They need to stop performing victimhood and start practicing agency. But they can only do this if they want to. And most chronic complainers do not want to. Because change is terrifying. Because taking responsibility is hard. Because facing the inner void is painful. And so they stay stuck. And they pull everyone around them into the stuckness. And they call it love. They call it loyalty. They call it friendship. But it is not. It is codependency. It is enmeshment. It is the mutual agreement to stay small, safe, and miserable together. And you do not have to agree to that. You do not owe anyone your energy. You do not owe anyone your peace. You do not owe anyone your light. And if someone in your life is consistently draining you, consistently pulling you into negativity, consistently refusing to take responsibility for their own emotional state, then you have every right to create distance. You have every right to prioritize your own well-being. You have every right to say, I love you and I cannot do this anymore. This is not abandonment. This is liberation. For both of you. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their self-destruction, to stop being the audience for their victim story, to stop reinforcing the belief that they are powerless, to stop pretending that their complaints are profound insights instead of what they really are, avoidance mechanisms. Now let's talk about the other side. What if you are the complainer? What if you are reading this and you recognize yourself in these words? What if you realize that you have been running from powerlessness, shame, or emptiness by projecting your pain onto the world? What if you see now that your complaints are not solving anything, but are instead keeping you trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction? First, take a breath. Because awareness is the first step, and awareness is painful. It is painful to realize that you have been unconsciously pushing people away, that you have been draining the people you love, that you have been living in a mental prison of your own creation. But pain is not the enemy. Pain is the signal. Pain is the wake-up call. Pain is the invitation to change. So let's talk about how you change, how you break the cycle, how you stop complaining and start living. The first thing you need to do is interrupt the pattern. You need to catch yourself in the act of complaining. And this is harder than it sounds because chronic complaining is automatic. It is habitual. It is woven into the fabric of your daily life. You complain without even realizing you are doing it. It is just how you talk, how you process, how you connect. So you need to create awareness. And one of the best ways to do this is to track your complaints. For 1 week, every time you complain, write it down. Do not judge it. Do not try to stop it. Just observe it. Notice how often you complain. Notice what you complain about. Notice when you complain. Notice who you complain to. Notice how you feel before, during, and after. And here is what you will probably discover. You complain a lot. Way more than you thought. And most of your complaints are not about real problems. They are about minor inconveniences, small frustrations, things that do not actually matter. And the act of complaining does not make you feel better. It makes you feel worse. It reinforces your sense of victimhood. It deepens your dissatisfaction. It drains your energy. Once you see this, once you really see it, you cannot unsee it. And that is when the real work begins. The second thing you need to do is understand the root. Ask yourself, what am I really complaining about? What is the feeling underneath the complaint? Am I feeling powerless? Am I feeling ashamed? Am I feeling empty? And be honest, brutally honest, because the only way out is through. The only way to stop running is to turn around and face the thing you have been running from. If you are feeling powerless, then you need to reclaim your agency. You need to identify the areas of your life where you actually have control. And you need to take action. Small action, consistent action, not to fix everything, but to prove to yourself that you are not helpless, that your choices matter, that you can influence your reality. Maybe it is as simple as organizing your space, or finishing a project you have been avoiding, or setting a boundary you have been too scared to set. It does not have to be big. It just has to be real. It just has to be yours. If you are feeling ashamed, then you need to practice self-compassion. You need to stop treating yourself like the enemy. You need to stop believing that you are fundamentally flawed. You need to start speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. With kindness, with patience, with understanding. And you need to challenge the inner critic, the voice that says you are not enough. That voice is not telling you the truth. It is repeating old programming, old wounds, old beliefs that were never yours to begin with. And you have the power to question those beliefs, to reject them, to replace them with something kinder, something truer. If you are feeling empty, then you need to reconnect with your inner world. You need to slow down. You need to get quiet. You need to listen, not to the noise, not to the opinions, not to the expectations, but to yourself, to your own needs, your own desires, your own values, your own truth. And this requires stillness. It requires solitude. It requires the willingness to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, of not having, of not being enough. It requires the courage to feel the emptiness instead of filling it with complaints, distractions, or busyness. And here is what you will find. When you stop running from the emptiness, when you stop trying to fill it with external noise, something shifts. The emptiness stops being a void and starts being a space for something new, a space for curiosity, a space for creativity, a space for meaning, a space for you. The third thing you need to do is redirect your energy. Instead of focusing on what is wrong, start focusing on what you want. Instead of complaining about the problem, start imagining the solution. Instead of rehearsing your victimhood, start practicing your agency. This is not about toxic positivity. This is not about pretending that everything is fine when it is not. This is about choosing where to put your attention, because attention is energy, and energy flows where attention goes. If you spend all your time focusing on problems, you will create more problems. If you spend all your time focusing on lack, you will create more lack. But if you start focusing on possibility, on growth, on solutions, then you start creating momentum. you start creating change. You start creating a life that is worth living. And the final thing you need to do is build a practice of gratitude. Not because gratitude is trendy, not because gratitude is spiritual, but because gratitude is the antidote to chronic complaining. Gratitude is the practice of noticing what is working instead of what is broken. It is the practice of acknowledging what you have instead of what you lack. It is the practice of appreciating the small things instead of obsessing over the big things that are out of your control. And this is hard, especially at first, especially when your brain has been trained to find fault. But like any practice, it gets easier. The more you practice gratitude, the more you rewire your brain. The more you train your nervous system to look for the good, the more you cultivate a baseline of contentment instead of dissatisfaction. Start small. Every day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. Not big things, small things. The coffee that was actually good, the person who smiled at you, the moment of silence in the morning, the fact that you are alive, that you are breathing, that you have another chance to try again. And watch what happens. Watch how your perspective shifts. Watch how your energy lifts. Watch how your relationships improve. Watch how people start wanting to be around you again. Watch how you start wanting to be around yourself again. This is the transformation. This is the shift from victim to creator, from complainer to builder, from powerless to sovereign. And it is available to you, right now, in this moment. All you have to do is choose it. So let me ask you this. Are you ready to stop complaining? Are you ready to stop running? Are you ready to face the powerlessness, the shame, the emptiness, and transform it into something real? Are you ready to reclaim your energy, your peace, your life? Because the world does not need more complainers. The world needs builders, creators, people who see the problems and then do something about them. People who take responsibility for their own emotional state instead of projecting it onto everyone around them. People who understand that suffering is inevitable but victimhood is a choice. And you can be that person. You already are that person. You just need to remember. You just need to choose. You just need to act. Before we close, I want you to do something. I want you to think about the last time you complained. What was it about? What were you really feeling? And what would it look like to address that, feeling directly instead of projecting it outward? Take a moment. Sit with that question. Let it work on you. Because awareness is the beginning of change, and change is the beginning of freedom. If this video resonated with you, if you are tired of living in a state of chronic dissatisfaction, if you are ready to break the cycle and reclaim your power, then hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is one complaint you are ready to let go of? What is one area of your life where you are ready to take action instead of staying stuck? And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who is trapped in the complaining loop, share this video with them. Not as an attack, not as a judgment, but as an invitation to something better, something truer, something needed. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for choosing awareness over avoidance. This is not easy, but it is worth it, and you are worth it. In the next video, we are going to talk about the psychology of people who never apologize, why some people would rather burn a relationship to the ground than admit they were wrong, and what this reveals about their inner world. You do not want to miss that. So make sure you are subscribed, make sure your notifications are on, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay sovereign, stay selective, stay needed.